Fantasy Football Live. We are in Fantasy Football Championship weekend. For those who made it, good luck. Congratulations on getting there. Let's get you through one more. For everybody who's not there, maybe you're playing DFS, maybe you're betting some props, get you all set up for some success there. Definitely talk some football. We always enjoy that. I will be on the Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Channel Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I'm usually not on Fridays. I'll be on with Mario Puig tonight, 8 to 10 Eastern. Hope you can join me there. Saturdays, as usual, will be on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Channel 1 to 3 Eastern. Sunday, 9 to 10. Of course, we'll be on this show. We'll be on this show on Saturday. We'll have DFS and gambling. That'll be the same time, 11 a.m. Eastern, where you're watching now. Sunday, the Start Sit Show. I'll put that up on my X profile a little later today, the link to that, but the usual place. Get here for your fantasy football lineup questions, and I will give you the why so you can make your best lineup decisions. Bottom of the hour, Adam Thompson coming in to give you 4 best bets for those who are going to gamble. We'll break those games down. It'll be very useful. All right, so I'm going to be playing the Super Draft for the Sunday games. Now, here are the picks I'm going to make. And actually, I'm making them Saturday as well. It's not just Sunday, it's Saturday. First one, David Montgomery, over 54.5 rush yards against Dallas. First of all, at a very basic level, Montgomery's gone over that in the last 4 games. But here's the thing. Dallas struggles terribly against power running football. We saw it 2 weeks ago. That's what the Bills have been doing, mauling Torrance, Osiris, I can't get his name right, mauling downhill. And the Jonathan Hankins, defensive tackle, is out. Linebackers have been without Leighton Vander Esch forever. David Montgomery is going to have a game here. They only need about 17 carries to get there. Same game. I like CeeDee Lamb over 99.5 yards. Now, the best place to attack Detroit's corners are the outsides. CeeDee Lamb has been running a lot in the slot, but Dallas has shown all year they will move him to where he fits best. I think he'll play a little more outside in this game. The games he's played more in the slot were against teams with the weaknesses there, but they're going to need Lamb to keep up in this game. And so CeeDee Lamb over 99.5 yards. Third one, Trey McBride over 63.5 yards against Philadelphia. Now, the Bears really slowed him down, 6 catches for 31 yards, but he had been 89 or more yards in the last 2 games. Philly probably gets a pretty good lead over Arizona. And Arizona, look, McBride's their lead guy, and you can attack Philly in the middle of the field. Philly's not selling out to stop Trey McBride, so I like Trey McBride over 63.5 yards. Now, if you want to play Super Draft, here's our promotion. When you sign up with the promo code ROTO, you'll get a free leg to your parlay, $20 deposit bonus with a first-time deposit of 20 or more. Also, to have a discount on the Thursday nights for Thursday Night Football, the community votes on which player they want to see discounted. Otherwise, you can win up to 100 times your entry. And if you like to swing for the fence lottery style, Super Draft has progressive jackpot player props. You make 12 picks. If you get them right, jackpot's over 20 grand right now. So there's that. All right, everybody, Thursday Night Football. So tough to predict fantasy. We know this. I said this. We get the probabilities. We always try to give you a 5% probability edge over the field, because when you predict a player, you also have to predict the game script to some degree. The over and under on this game was 35 points. The Browns had 34 in the first half. Now they scored 3 points the rest of the way. 20 points by the defense, and I know 2 of these scores are defensive scores. But I don't know, based on the way the lines were set up for this game, Amari Cooper ruled out. The Jets' defense simply did not show up. Joe Flacco's playing well. No problem with Joe Flacco. And of course, he throws the turnover plays. That's his game. He gives, he takes away. It is what it is. The Jets' defense, until the second half, they did not show up. Jerome Ford looked like Superman. There were people asking me start-sit question with Jerome Ford. We have learned in the last few weeks, the Browns don't want to run the ball. They're throwing Flacco 45 times a game. Now, in this game, he only threw 29 because they were in a game script where they were blowing out the opponent. But they don't want to run. And Ford was actually lifted in the fourth quarter in this game. But again, he gets 14 touches. He goes for over 121 yards and 2 receiving touchdowns. So Jerome Ford, for those who had to use him, comes through beautifully. Kareem Hunt scores a touchdown, 10 for 31. It's his normal workload, but he scores that touchdown. Elijah Moore. Here's where the Jets didn't show up. If Elijah Moore is your number 1 receiver on the outside, and you've got two great corners. How does Elijah Moore go 5 for 61 and a touchdown? Sauce Gardner, DJ Reed, neither matchup was positive for him. It had Moore not gone down with a concussion, numbers probably would have been higher. Now, I know they didn't do anything in the second half, but he was concussed and he goes up with 17 PPR points. And David Njoku. Now, we knew you could attack the Jets at the tight end, but you would think with Cooper out, they could have put some attention on him and said, okay, we're not worried about Cedric Tillman. Yeah, we're not worried about Marquise Goodwin. We're not worried about all the ancillary options. But Njoku goes off in the first half, ends up with 134 yards in this game. So anyway, and Flacco 309 and 3 touchdowns. So they came through for you. You played your Browns, they did. And look, I was excited. My biggest preseason bet that I pushed to everybody who listened to me was the Browns making the playoffs. I got that plus odds, plus 120, plus 130 in some spots. I got profit boosts on those. And it was nice to cash that with a full week and change before the playoffs start. So that was the big call. Obviously, they dealt with adversity. Proud of the Browns. Great season so far. The Jets side of the ball. Well, Trevor Siemian, because of garbage time. And again, I think the Cleveland defense to a degree, they didn't really play their A game. They give up running plays. We knew that. I recommended some people to start Breece Hall because they give up explosive runs. But Breece Hall went off on them. Breece Hall, 22 touches, another 126 yards and a touchdown. So if you sat him, that was to your peril. And you would think Cleveland would come in saying, okay, look, we got one guy we really got some. Garrett Wilson is a superstar, but with the quarterback play, his upside is so capped. The one guy who could really have killed them was Breece Hall. Now, the Browns won the game handily. It doesn't matter. But again, Breece Hall does go off for fantasy. Garrett Wilson, 5 for 15 on 10. If you start him in a PPR, you got a floor game, fine. He hasn't had ceiling games, but that was like lower floor for him. He normally gets you about 12 to 15, 18 points. 10 was a little bit low for that. Tyler Conklin chipped in with a fair game, 5 for 46. But yeah, that's about it. And we knew this. Dalvin Cook was relegated out. Israel Abanikanda got most of his work late, but Cook's completely out of the rotation. Hasn't really played in 2 weeks. So if you are somehow doing something in week 18, most aren't. But Abanikanda now is really the change of pace with a very little work unless the game's out of hand. So there's that. Probably not much more time to spend on this game. So let's get into some player matchups for this week that you might be interested in terms of starting players or DFS or props or anything like that. Let's start out at quarterback. Tua Tagovailoa playing the Ravens. I'm worried about Tua here. Jalen Waddle's not expected to play per Adam Schefter. So he's not playing his high ankle thing. They say it's not serious, but sounds like he's not going. Obviously, they still have Tyreek Hill and they still have a running game. But for Tua, I'm very concerned about this matchup. That the style of offense that they run in Miami is very similar to the San Francisco scheme. And obviously San Francisco has many, many more playmakers. Now, Tyreek Hill is better than all of them, but it is what it is. And the Ravens will run some cloud coverage. They will get some post-snap movement. Tua struggles with that. And it's possible the run game gets going. Mostert's nicked up. He's playing. Achan's nicked up. He's playing. But what we have to be concerned about here is, because the Ravens play a lot of light boxes. They defend the pass very well, because of that, but they are vulnerable on the ground. Now, even though the offensive line is all kinds of beat up for Miami, the outside zone run game, it doesn't always need a great offensive line. So all this says to Tua, I don't see Tua doing very well here. Now, Tua has 2 total touchdown passes in the last 3 games. He had 293 in a touchdown against Dallas. The week prior, 224 in a touchdown. The week prior, 240 in a touchdown and 0 touchdowns. So he has not gotten it done for fantasy 3 weeks in a row. This is a worse matchup. Based on him being Tua and him having Tyreek Hill, you put him in the top 12. But if you've got an option that's just on the borderline of the top 12 and you've got somebody else, strongly consider starting him over Tua, because I think 1 touchdown is an upside game for Tua here. I think there's a great chance he doesn't throw a touchdown pass here. Like I said, the Ravens are going to run some cloud coverage. And it's not going to be easy for them to move the ball through the air here. They're going to have an answer for Tyreek Hill. This team, they've got, and I don't know if Kyle Hamilton's status is, but anyway, I'm nervous about Tua. Let me move on so I don't spend all day on this one player. Jared Goff is next. Jared Goff on the road. Jared Goff potentially facing pressure. Now, Dallas's defense has been terrible the last few weeks. They're at home here. That's a big difference for them. Dallas at home is just a completely different animal. And we know, though, the Lions have a very good offensive line, so there's that. But Dallas is going to get some pressure. But here's what I think is going to happen. Detroit knows they can run the ball on this team, and Dan Campbell's all about running when he can. They can get Montgomery going. They can get Gibbs going. They may not need Goff to do a lot in this game. Even if they fall behind a little bit, they may not go away from the run. They have such a distinct advantage there. Goff's had some good road games this year, but not against a defense that has the potential of playing up to the Cowboys level. So I am viewing Goff as a boom or bust option. Possible he has the game, but there's an also, this isn't one of those floor games. There's a floor games where you start him and say, safe play. Jared Goff to me is not a safe play here. We could see that game where he throws for, 210, no touchdowns and a pick. That easily, the run game can get going. If the game shoots out and if the offensive line is able to hold off Dallas's pass rush, and if Dallas really is as bad as they've looked lately, well, then that's what makes him boom bust. But I do not consider him stable this week. Gardner Minshew was playing really, really, really well. And then last week, they go into Atlanta, and he throws for 201 and a pick. Now, no Michael Pittman in that game. That's a big deal, right? Now, he finished the Raiders game without Michael Pittman and did just fine. Now, Pittman will find out game time call on him. But the Raiders are playing inspired football. Now, it helps. Minshew's at home. That does help. But the Raiders' defense is for real. They've literally been an excellent defense since Antonio Pierce came in. I don't know. They've had a number, like George Kuntz is playing really well. They have a number of players that we kind of were like adequate NFL players. They are playing way over what their previous levels of success were. So this defense has really been something outstanding. Jack Jones making big plays. Patriots dumped him. He had the big pick 6 last week. So Minshew is, again, a very risky start because the Raiders defense right now is for real. I don't think there's a game where they come down off the beating of Kansas City. I think Antonio Pierce has them really, really motivated. They do have a chance to make the playoffs, as do the Colts. So I'm very concerned with Gardner Minshew here. Now, Pittman plays, that raises the floor. It certainly does. If Pittman doesn't go, I would be inclined to say Gardner Minshew is not a recommended start. Derek Carr's next. Derek Carr is like a passer rating of 10 when he's pressured. Something like that. Oh, my gosh. The Bucs are going to bring heat. They don't always get it home. Problem is, right tackle Ryan Ramczyk is not likely to play. He hasn't practiced yet. He missed last week, didn't practice this week. That does not look promising. He's their best lineman, their best protector. Now with Derek Carr on the road, again, always a little bit different than we expect. See George and Uncle Ted in the house. Glad you guys are here. Welcome. So again, Derek Carr, though, sometimes he weasels into these good games. I mean, he has multiple touchdowns at 3 straight games. Last week, garbage time, whatever, but he goes over 300 yards and throws for 3 touchdowns. So Derek Carr is going to be an extremely volatile play because the Bucs have a good chance of playing with the lead here. Marshawn Lattimore is out. So if you were worried about Mike Evans because his history against the Saints, don't worry. With Lattimore out, that's a big, 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 big deal because Lattimore just, those two battle, they have each other's number. So that's not so good. But Mike Evans is in great shape now with no Marshawn Lattimore. So, but that's a Derek Carr, super volatile. He could have that implosion game. He could get pulled. He could get knocked around. Or there could be garbage time. So again, he is not a safe option in any way. So if you're looking for safe in your fantasy championship game, he's not safe. If you need volatile, if you need somebody who can come up with a 27-point game, 28-point game, that's in his range of outcomes. But the range of outcomes also has him with a 9 or a 10. That's in there as well. So just understand that. All right, some running backs. Devon Achane. Well, Achane hasn't been great lately. He had 31 yards on 8 touches against Dallas. Prior week, he had 62 yards on 12 touches. Before that, he was right around 70 yards, but no touchdowns in the last 3. We were getting those big games out of him. So we're not seeing that right now. He's getting around 10 touches a game, right around 10. So that gives him a little bit of a floor. Again, it's possible against the Ravens. You can run. They run a lot of light fronts. So it's possible he gets that toe injury. That toe injury probably is something that probably has taken away an explosive element from his game. And if Devon Achane doesn't have the explosive element, you're left with a floor play, and that's about it. I don't know how many points Miami's scoring in this game. I like Miami's team total under. I don't know that they're going to sniff 20 points in this game. So Achane is more of a flex type play. Good floor flex, very good floor flex. I don't know if that 10 to 12 touches without the big plays being sprinkled in. I don't know if that quite puts him in the RB2 range, but depending on who you have, you might sneak him in there as well. Derrick Henry's next, playing the Texans. Well, we know what happened to the Texans 2 weeks ago. 16 carries for 9 yards, 4 catches for 1 yard. So we had 20 touches, 10 yards. The 4 catches did get him the 5 PPR points. Well, the Texans are going to do what the Texans did. I mean, I don't know how they came up with a different game plan here. I don't think they're concerned about Will Levis beating him, and Levis is on a bum ankle. You expect it to play. I think he's going to play. Seems as of right now he's going to play. But even if it's Tannehill, does it really matter, right? So Derrick Henry's a tough call because outside of that game where he just stunk, he's regularly flirting with 100 scrimmage yards, scoring touchdowns. So very, very good production outside of that game. But there was that game. And the Texans have shown. Now, here's the deal, though. The Texans, the whole defensive line is injured. They all missed practice Thursday. Greenard and Will Anderson have missed time already. So that's the one thing. So if they're down linemen, that bodes better for Derrick Henry. So, again, be careful with Henry because we think this defense is going to oversell to stop him. And they're going to be willing to let either Levis most likely or Tannehill, if Levis can't make it, try to beat him. And I think they're going to be happy with that recipe. So Derrick Henry's going to get volume. And you're hoping he scores a touchdown. But with that recent matchup, there is a sense of fear. See, John and Sauger in the house. Welcome in. We'll have Adam Thompson at the bottom of the hour to go over some gambling. Ty Chandler's next. Playing Green Bay. A lot of people started Ty Chandler last week. Fortunately, he got a touchdown. 8 carries, 17 yards. But he scored. So he got you 7.7 points in any scoring system. So so it's fine. It wasn't what you wanted. But Detroit was a terrible matchup. 2 yards a carry. That was it. But that was Detroit. Green Bay, that's a much softer matchup. Not an oppressive matchup, but a much soft and not a cakewalk matchup either, but a good matchup. Jaren Hall's going to start a quarterback for them. And speaking of Jaren Hall, those in Superflex leagues, be very, very careful. Maybe Jaren Hall does well, but maybe we see another quarterback play. Maybe Nick Mullins. I don't know if they're activating Josh Dobbs for this one or not. I don't know how they're going to handle that. But don't be surprised if you see more than one quarterback in this game because both teams, the Packers and the Vikings, are playing for their playoff lives. And if Jaren Hall comes out slow, if they fall behind, they could easily switch quarterbacks. So I'm not saying that will happen, but with their season on the line and they were very wishy-washy, early in the week as who's going to be their starter, be concerned. But Ty Chandler, he should get volume here. It looks like based on what Kevin O'Connell said last week, it sounds like Madison's the backup, but that means you're not going to see that 23 carry game out of Chandler like you did 2 weeks ago. You're probably more likely to see 12 to 15 carries. Maybe you're likely to see 2 to 4 targets. So, and again, the matchup's not scary. So I think he has some upside, but there's also reason to be concerned. Adam Thompson, man, we are getting to the finish line here.
Crazy, just 2 weeks left, huh?
Man, incredible. Adam, I see you're in a little bit early. You want me to? I'm gonna get your picks, and I'll get back and I'll go back to some of this fantasy stuff because I'll let you get on your way. But let's get to the picks. We'll get that, and everybody who's out there, I can answer your start-sit questions at the end. I can go back to the wide receiver sits and tight ends, but I want to get Adam in because we want his bets. So Adam, call him the ATM.
I just wanted your picks. That's why I'm here early. I wanted to hear what you had to say. I got 2 championship games coming up. I was in 2 last week.
Well, let's get to it then. We'll get back to what we were doing then. We'll get to the picks at the bottom of the hour. Perfect. All right. So wide receivers. I'm talking about players that are borderline start sits this week, Adam. So Drake London. Usually the drill with him is he has not played well at all on the road. This week they're playing the Bears. Jalen Johnson has been playing amazing football. Now, whether he travels or not, you never know what a team's going to do, but it won't even matter because the Bears have clamped down number 1 receivers all year. London on the road has not been good. Taylor Heineke is not anything significantly better than Ritter. So I'm on the side of saying if you got London, you are praying for a touchdown. And if you're starting him, understand the floor is literally 3 to 4 points. Anything on London?
No, that sounds like good advice to me. I think, yeah, Taylor Heineke, I mean, he looked well last week, but, it's always harder that second week. Now that people have seen you, now that you're going on the road, the Falcons offense, as we'll talk about later, is not very good outside.
No.
And now you're talking about outside in cold Chicago against a defense that is geared to especially stop the run and thus take away basically everything you want to kind of do, at least to set up your pass. So yeah, I think staying away from those Falcons receivers is probably pretty wise.
Yeah, it probably will work out. Now, the next one we'll talk about, look, that Buffalo passing game has just been weird. Gabe Davis, a whole bunch of goose eggs, but last week goes 4 for a $130 to touchdown. So he's got this string of 6 games. He's got I think it's 5 3 goose eggs, and then 2 20-point fantasy games. So this is completely your boom bust call. And then we lump him in with Stephon Diggs, who has been at single-digit PPR points in 5 of his last 6, and they draw New England. Now, New England, we know their history. They are going to do what they can to slow down the number one. This year, they have not been good at all against number 2 receivers. So based on paper, Davis continues to be volatile because you never know if he'll get targets. But this would be the game that would be more likely a bust than a boom than a bust, so more favorable than not. But if you're willing to trust him, that's up to you. Diggs right now, look, if you're starting him, just understand you're probably getting single digit PPR points. So if you're starting him, I don't think there's much of a ceiling. Anything on Davis and Diggs from your end?
I've read end of year lists, and a lot of experts are saying that Diggs has been arguably one of the top 5 most disappointing fantasy players this season, and it's just that inconsistency, I think. And now it's not even inconsistent; he's consistently mediocre at this point. And what do you do with that? I don't know if that's a Josh Allen thing or if it's just Diggs being he's kind of emotional, get his way out of town kind of guy. When things aren't going well, they really don't go well kind of guy. If it's more of that than a game planning thing, but yeah, it's he's definitely kind of a yellow light, red light type of player right now.
Yeah, and when they started winning, I thought it might turn around because kind of like you're intimating, maybe he was one of those like Randy Moss used to be. He was a great front runner. When a team was winning, he played his best football. But no, that hasn't happened. Next one, Davante Adams. Last week, 1 catch, 4 yards. He does get targeted 6 times. But here was the deal. The Raiders got the lead against Kansas City, and they literally didn't pass the ball after that. They sat on the ball, and they ran it. They're playing at Indy. There's a reasonable chance they could get a lead or a close game. And we know Antonio Pierce wants to run. And with the state of the Indy run defense, and right now, even with Grover Stewart back, they are not good. They got shredded, even though they got shredded by the Falcons last week. And Zamir White could go off here. So what do we do with Davante Adams? I'm saying, look, again, I'm going to go to that boom busting. He's not a stable floor player. He's not stable at all, but he's Davante Adams. And so it's very hard to bench him because at a moment's notice, if this game's a shootout, he goes over 100 yards. So I'm not benching him. Anything on Adams?
Yeah, that's what I was about to say too. You can't bench Davante Adams because he's still the number 1 target. The problem is they may not throw, like you said. But if they do throw, Aiden O'Connell, he's going to look for Davante. Like even when they didn't throw last week, 6 balls still thrown his way. Only 1 was caught, but. You can't bench him, but hopefully you're not relying on him to win you a title.
DeMarcus Robinson is next. He has at least 44 yards and a touchdown in 4 straight games. And I've been telling people for weeks, if you're in Sean McVay's offense and he wants you to get the ball and he's going to scheme you open and the defense can't allocate any special resources to you because they have Kupp, they have Nakua, they have Kyron Williams running the ball. DeMarcus Robinson will continue to be dangerous. He's their big body in the red zone, and that's why he's getting the touchdowns. He's reliable with that. That said, they're at the Giants, and the Giants better pass defense than a run defense. But again, they can't focus on him. There's always going to be risk with DeMarcus Robinson, but if I need him in the flex play, he has done it. And the touchdown's been 4 straight. He's been fantasy viable for 5 or 6. As a flex, I'm saying roll with him. Anything on that?
Everything the Rams have done is turned to gold this year. I did not think they'd be very good, but Nakua stepped up. Atwell, Robinson, Williams all of a sudden is an RB1. Kudos to Stafford for doing it and to McVay for planning it. That makes a lot of sense. Robinson's a big guy. He's a big target down there. He can go up and get balls, and they're feeding him.
Right? Easy enough. And like I said, the defense can't allocate resources to him. So there you have it. George Pickens is next. Look, Mason Rudolph was the quarterback last week. And I know there were a lot of start-sit questions where Pickens was a sit. He had not been playing great. He just came off a 3 for 47, a 5 for 19. And then they go to Mason Rudolph. And it's like, yeah, right. And they're playing Seattle this week. Now you got Mason Rudolph again. Now Kenny Pickett, I guess, is pushing the play, but right now, apparently Rudolph's the starter. Pickens had 195 yards and 2 touchdowns last week. Now Seattle, they got the names at corner. Devon Witherspoon's a better in the slot, and that's not where George Pickens is going. Pickens is a big dude. And Reek Woolen, we've seen him on the sidelines not playing. Coach is pulling him back and forth because I guess he can't tackle. So there's a problem with that. So, look, at this point, I'm going to play Pickens. I know Mason Rudolph could turn into a pumpkin at a drop of a hat. And I know George Pickens had plenty of down games. I'm keeping my expectations tempered, but I'm playing him after that big game. Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that Rudolph does, he'll just chuck it up there, even when he probably shouldn't, if there's not a huge advantage. But Pickens is so big and physical. If he's in the right position, he is an advantage. If it's one-on-one on an island, we saw that, that's how a lot of those big plays were, is he just beat his one guy and there's nobody else there. So as long as Rudolph picks those moments to throw to Pickens, I think he could have another 1 or 2 catches of 30, 40, 50 plus yards.
Last one I want to talk about at receiver is Curtis Samuel and the ultimate tease. He comes off a pair of games. He had a 4 for 65, 5 for 41, and 2 touchdowns. So he was like getting it done for fantasy. And then, of course, last week in a good matchup, he goes 1 for 16. That and 6 targets. That's Curtis Samuel. And that was the Jets, but the inside, we saw it even last night. The middle of the field against the Jets is a good matchup. Well, it wasn't for Curtis Samuel because he's Curtis Samuel, and that's why he's not a star. They're playing the 49ers, and the 49ers may have gotten shredded last week. Now, I know Jacoby Brissett's a quarterback, but if there's one place the 49ers with their zone do play well is the middle of the field, and that's where Samuel lives. For me, Samuel's a sit. Anything on that?
Well, as somebody who traded for Terry McLaurin mid-season in a move that ultimately did not work, I want to see Curtis Samuel catch no passes, get no targets. So I'll always sit Curtis Samuel. No, you make a lot of sense. The Niners have something to prove as well. I think they're going to come out firing on defense. I think they're going to show something.
Now, the one tight end. People are going to be considering starting Juwan Johnson. All of a sudden, Taysom Hill's snap share has gone down into the teens percentage-wise, very low. Juwan Johnson last week, 7 targets, 4 for 48. He scores. The week before, 2 targets, but he catches them both for 38 and a touchdown. Tampa Bay is super soft in the middle. Again, Johnson, we never know from week to week. As Taysom Hill get more involved here. But based on the last 2-week trend, the snaps went up from 44 to 72% last week. Juwan Johnson, if you have nobody at tight end and you have to take a swing, then fine, start him there, but he's not a stable play. But against this defense, that matchup would be there. So again, if he happens to be on a waiver wire in the league you're in and you need somebody, then at that point, take the swing. Anything on that, Adam?
Yeah, all Saints players, other than Olave, when he's out there, have just been so inconsistent. It's hard to rely on really any of them. I had Taysom Hill. I think I drafted him. One of the last rounds, just one of those flyers.
Right.
Maybe he'll be a quarterback that you could play at tight end. One of those cheat the system type of picks. But you just don't know if he's going to touch the ball, if he's going to play, where he's going to play. If he's going to play tight end, he might play tight end 30 snaps. He might play wide receiver or quarterback. And that means, and that trickles down to Johnson and to other guys. You just don't get that level of consistency that you want.
Exactly. We have 2 questions before we get to the games. George is asking us, ETN. Now, first we'll talk about ETN. ETN is not getting any blocking whatsoever. His snaps are down from earlier in the season. He has a great matchup on paper against Carolina. You would think they want to run the ball, but what we've seen from ETN recently has been nothing very useful for fantasy. Zeke Elliott is next, and the first game he played in for Stevenson, great as a runner and a receiver. But since it's the targets, that like the second week they had a second game, he was terrible at both. But last week it was, I believe, it was 9 catches, touchdown catch, putting up yardage as a receiver. And against Buffalo, you can get it done as a receiving back. So Zeke has volume. And then your last one is Clyde Edwards-Helaire if Pacheco is out. The only thing I'm going to say with that is I think Deneric Prince will be brought up, and it will be more of a timeshare thing. I don't think it's going to be only Edwards-Helaire's job. So that said, Edwards-Helaire he's a very iffy player in terms of week-to-week production. So to me, he's very unstable, but there's potential upside. So of those three, Adam, are you leaning ETN, Zeke, or Edwards-Helaire at full PPR?
I'd go Zeke because I think if he's performs early on, Belichick will go to him 25 times in the game. He'll just keep pounding it if he keeps working. So at least you have that higher upside of potential, at least with him.
And that PPR angle, too. I mean, Zeke has been a good pass catcher. And if Buffalo tries to bring pressure, which they tend to try to do that, then I do think him as an outlet. I think Zeke has the highest floor of that group, and he may have the highest ceiling. And like Adam's saying, I think he's the play out of this one. And if he gets rolling, like Adam said, continue to see that. And then one more we have John wants to know, championship week, even matchup. Josh Allen is your quarterback. Deontay Johnson against Seattle, Gabe Davis against the Pats, Shaheed against Tampa, or Thielen against the Jags. So as we're looking at this, we saw last week, Mason Rudolph actually prefers to throw the ball downfield. I thought he'd be one looking underneath. He was not looking there at all. So that makes me a little nervous about Deontay Johnson. Gabe Davis, we talked about him earlier in the show. He has 3 goose eggs and then 2 20-point fantasy games in the last 5. But New England has been very poor against number 2 receivers, and there's a world where they get him the ball. Rashid Shaheed, wonderful player, but New Orleans on the road is always tricky with Derek Carr, and he's more bust than boom. If he was in a more stable offense with a more stable quarterback, he's dangerous to start. The matchup's good. And Adam Thielen, he's had a very good floor the last 3 weeks. The Jaguars have finally gotten everybody healthy on defense, and their pass rush isn't good, but this might be a week they're actually able to get that going. So of these 4, who do you like?
Gabe, kind of for the reasons you talked about. I think they made a lot of sense. New England's really good at stopping the number 1 receivers. Not good at all at stopping the number 2 receivers. And Deontay Johnson, I was pretty disappointed in his ever last week. He was just a forgotten man out there in the Steelers offense. I guess Pickens' game was going so well and everything else was working and they were winning. So, you expect a bit of a bounce back with Deontay. I'm sure Deontay is got into Mason's ear this week. Look for me. I am open, even if he's not. But I think Gabe Davis is the best play here. Yeah.
And we have one more quick one before we get to the games. Mr. Portugal's asking about Eckler against Denver. Look, I was saying on another show, if there's a week that Eckler is going to go off, it's this one. Denver can't stop the run. They can't stop receiving backs. Last week we saw Eckler. He was handling a ton of the work. It's like the team does not want to quit. So I think at this point, you're playing Eckler because the matchup could not be better. The touches should be high. He has a real chance of scoring multiple touchdowns here. Any thoughts on Eckler?
Yeah, and I think he wants to stick it to his old coach that's not on the sidelines anymore. He wants, him and the rest of the team. I think they want to prove, okay, we have a good team. This is a solid group of guys, and Staley was the problem, and we have a couple of games to prove it. So let's do it. And yeah, like you said, this is a great matchup for him.
All right, so best bets. Adam Thompson is this. You go to people who know what they're doing when you're looking for gambling advice. Adam is an established veteran gambler, been at this racket a long time, a successful documented winner. Adam, let's start out. Falcons at the Bears. Mild temperatures in Chicago. We talked a little earlier. The Falcons are often a completely different team away from home than at home. The Bears have been playing much better football the last month, especially on defense, and the defense at home is better than the defense on the road. How are you handicapping this game regardless?
Yeah, like you said, the Chicago Bears, they won 3 of 4. They've found a way, and the one loss was a shoulda win against Cleveland. So that's impressive. And then on the flip side, you have the Atlanta Falcons who looked very good. They really turned around last week. They looked great against kind of an undermanned Colts team. Beat them handily, 29-10. Taylor Heineke. But now you get outside, they're averaging 13 points a game outdoors on the season. That's rough. And when you look at the run game, that's what both teams are fueled on, right? But the difference is Chicago's defense ranks number 1 in the NFL in stopping the run.
Man.
Atlanta's allowing 125 yards rushing per game over the last 8 weeks. So Chicago looks like they're going to be able to do what they want to do to get moving. Atlanta isn't, and it's in the environment that they're poorest in. So Chicago -3, that's it. I'll take that at home.
And I'm looking at betting the under on the Falcons team total. I could see them scoring less than 14 points. Is that foolish, or is that in the range?
Yeah, that's low. But like you said, these receivers don't have a good matchup. And the running backs don't have a good matchup. So where's the matchup that's gonna give them points? Fields fumbling? I guess that's a matchup if that counts.
And I'm actually trying to find the actual number here to see what it is. I think they could score up. I'm going to see. I'll tell you what their total is in a second here as you're talking the rest of this through.
Yeah, if it's 14.5, that would be lower than what.
It's 17.5. It's 17.5. Yeah, I was saying the under. I'd like the under on whatever it was. I think they could score 14 or less. Under 17.5, -105 odds on that.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, that's not bad because like I said, they average 13. It's 13.2 to be specific. How much they've averaged on the road all year, and that's counting good weather. And it's going to be for Chicago for end of December. It's going to be great weather actually for them. But it's still going to feel cold to those thin-blooded Georgians.
Adam, somebody paid up for a super chat question, so we have to answer this one. I'm happy you did that, Lucky Leo. Survivor. So for the 3 games, Atlanta, you and I both think the Bears beat Atlanta, so we're out on Atlanta, correct?
Yeah, I like Chicago in this.
Yeah, we're both out on that. The Colts are playing home against the Raiders, and we'll talk. That's one of your games. Is that one of your games? No,
that is one of my games.
It is one of yours. Okay,
that is one.
It is one of your games.
And Tampa against the Saints is one of my games as well. So
you're gonna.
I definitely have an answer for this question.
So Leo, Adam's breaking these down, so your question will be answered organically in the next 2 games, and then we'll actually do those 2 right now, and then we'll save the 49ers Commanders for the last pick. I'll change it on my sheet here. So let's get to these so we can help you out. All right. So Saints and Buccaneers is the next one. The Saints, again, different team at home and on the road. I don't think right tackle Ryan Ramchek's going to play. He didn't play last week. He didn't practice as of Thursday. So he is their best offensive lineman, and he is down. The Bucs are getting fairly healthy right now for the most part. Carlton Davis may miss one of the corners, but otherwise they've been getting healthier by the day. How are you handicapping this game?
Yeah, here is the answer, and the answer is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think Derek Carr, Baker Mayfield. I actually like Mayfield over this one. He's playing better right now. It's a matchup of improved defenses. Both defenses are actually allowing under 21 points a game on the season. You don't think of especially the Buccaneers. You don't think, okay, right, this is 2 great defenses against each other. They're both averaging under 21 points allowed. Now the difference is when the Saints play a team that's allowing 21 points or less, they're 0-3 against the spread. Tampa Bay is 7-1 against the spread in the same situation. So there's one reason like Tampa. Another one is the Saints have not done well at all against opponents who are pass first. They got lit up by the Vikings. They got lit up by the Lions. They got lit up by the Jaguars. 30-plus points against all those teams. No Marshawn Lattimore. That is huge for them. So I really like Tampa. -2.5 is all the line is. I think this is more of a 6 to 7 point line. I love Tampa this week.
And Mike Evans has had many bad games against the Saints. Those are with Marshawn Lattimore on the field. With no Lattimore, because that's been a great matchup.
Yeah.
Right now, they have really nobody who's going to be able to give Evans that kind of trouble. Evans also, the prop's a little bit low on him. I think it's based on history, but yeah, he should do well in this one. All right, great call on that one. Let's go to the Raiders-Colts game. Like we said earlier, the Raiders Antonio Pierce has this defense playing aggressive, fast. Not Max Crosby's moving around. They used to be like on the one side always. They found like, oh, the weakness. They'll put them 20 snaps on the other side. They'll create a big vacuum where other players now are creating havoc as well. The Colts, we don't know if Michael Pittman's back. On and off with that concussion. He missed last week. He's had practice time. So that is going to be something potentially important. But nonetheless, the Colts have their work cut out for them. Jonathan Taylor is not running at a great level. That's been very frustrating. Thoughts on this game?
Yeah, the Colts offense is, if Pittman's not out there especially, they're in some trouble. They managed 10 points last week against the Falcons. I think the Raiders defense is just as strong, and it's more opportune. I mean, they have 7 turnovers created the last 2 weeks. The offense has no turnovers on their side. Aiden O'Connell didn't look like much last week, but like we talked about before, he didn't have to, because the defense was all over Patrick Mahomes, and they were successful at running the ball. So, and Aiden O'Connell, he didn't do anything against the Chiefs, but the week before that, threw for 250 yards, 4 touchdowns, no picks. So we know he can, if it's there, he can bounce back here. So plus 3.5 for Vegas. I like that number. That's a great number. Indy can still win by 3, and you still win as the bet. When it comes to survivor pool, it's close. It's close, but I like Tampa over Indy for sure, because I think the Raiders can win this game.
Yes, and yeah, totally perfect call on that, because I mean the compromised Saints. That's an opponent you want them on the road. And I know it's a divisional game, and sometimes we hate taking divisional games. I just don't see the Saints. That I don't believe they're all that well coached either. I really don't think.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah, completely agree. I feel like Derek Carr. You just, there's some throws you could just see. He's like, why is this the play? I don't feel like he's on the same page with this coach. And you've seen a lot of like just pick sixes and bad picks from Derek Carr that you may not even seen last year when he was somewhere else. I agree. I think Tampa's if you still have Tampa Bay for your survivor pool championship, I think that's a pretty good spot to be in.
Yeah, so lucky Leo, good luck on that one. And Tampa's probably your call, but like Adam said, it's close. The Colts are in the realm with that one. All right, so that said, we have the 49ers Commanders. So obviously last week the 49ers were embarrassed in a big stage game. It looks like Trent Williams, the left tackle, is going to play. He had limited practice this week. Sounds like he could have actually come back in that game last week if he had to, but I think they realized it wasn't worth the risk at that point. They are on the road here at the Commanders. It is a cross-country trip. There's something for that. But the 49ers need that 1 seed. And this is a very important conference game for that reason. The Commanders, on the other hand, they're going to go to Jacoby Brissett here. We saw the offense has much more life. He has legitimate weapons. Terry McLaurin is obviously a superstar. Jahan Dotson on the other side has not had a good year, but he is a very talented player. Logan Thomas, we talked about Curtis Samuel earlier. As a receiver, Antonio Gibson. Don't know if they're going to have another running back. Brian Robinson still battling back from the hamstring, limited practice. Chris Rodriguez is on the IR. All that said, it's a big line here. What do you think?
Yeah, Robinson, another guy I traded for mid-season that did not pan out. Picked up 2 Commanders thinking, okay, Sam Howell, he's chucking it around. These guys are scoring some points with him. And both those guys laid eggs. Sam Howell regressed, and here we are. Anyway, I'm still bitter. But I like the Niners here. I just think, it's a cross-country trip, obviously, but they have a lot to play for still, including just a get-right moment. They're not just cruising into the end of the season now. They got humiliated on national television last week by the other top Super Bowl contender from the AFC. So I think they have something to prove. This is a perfect get-right opponent. The Commanders have lost 6 straight. I think they're giving up 35 a game in that run. What's going to stop the Niners from scoring 40 here? In the Dallas, from Washington's perspective, it's unfortunate Jacoby Brissett is playing, because you're right. He is a steady influence out there. He's not going to make the huge mistakes that Howell made. He may not make the huge errors, but he could frustrate the Niners. I think eventually the Niners will get to him and will hold the team down a little bit. But Washington's been huge underdogs twice before. They were plus 13 against Dallas. They were plus 9 against Miami. They lost by 35 and by 30 in those 2 games. When they're big underdogs, they don't come to to play. Apparently, they give up. So minus 13. That's obviously a big number, especially for a road team. But I like San Francisco.
Yeah, and they should take care of business. Like you said, they have a lot of reasons to not look past this Commanders team. And with the players they have, there is no way. And even they're as bad as the secondary is, Benjamin St. Juste, he hasn't practiced. That's a bigger problem for a team that has problems as it is. The 49ers probably put 40 on the board in this game. Betting the team total over on them, I see very few scenarios where they don't score over 30 points in this game. That's it as well. Anything on that?
They score 30 against almost everybody except Baltimore, apparently. But
right.
To not expect them to score, against a team that's averaging 35 points allowed, gave away their top 2 defensive players at the trade deadline, as a coach that's already got 1.5 feet out the door. I think over 30 is almost as sure a bet as you're going to find.
Since it's championship, we have one last question we'll take before we sign off. CJ Stroud playing at home against Tennessee. Very beat up defense. A lot of players on IR on that defense. Nico Collins was back last week, so he should be a full go here. Stroud obviously fine for the concussion, missing 2 games. Or Matthew Stafford playing a cross-country game, early time zone at New York. New York is not a good defense, but pass defense, they have played well. They do have a pass rush that could heat up on occasion, but obviously the Rams are a well-coached team that gets their receivers open consistently. So certainly Matthew Stafford has every opportunity to do well. I tend to think CJ Stroud has a safer floor being at home, and I think they could have similar ceilings. What do you think on this one?
This is a great question that I don't have a good answer for. So I'm gonna refer to you because I love Stafford. He's got so many targets. He's playing so well. But you look at who you're against in the situation, and that seems to favor Stroud. If Stroud can find that, that form that he had, in the middle of the season and before, then Stroud would be the pick.
Yeah. All right, Adam, tell everybody where they can find you and your work.
On the socials at Bookies Adam, otherwise bookies.com/picks. Picks are already up for the weekend.
And this show, you can catch the show Saturday, 11 a.m. We'll do DFS and more gambling. Sunday, start, sit. Anybody that needs their championship questions answered, I'll give you the why so you make your best line decision. I'll post the link to that on my X profile at Jim Coventry NFL this afternoon. And that's it on SiriusXM. If you have SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Channel 87, I'll be on tonight, 8 to 10 Eastern with Mario Puig. Saturday, 1 to 3 Eastern, again with Mario. Sunday, 9 to 10, so catch you there. For Adam Thompson, I'm Jim Coventry. Good luck to all in Fantasy Championship Week.